My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey gang, welcome to another episode of 40-plus Gay Man Gay Talk. Hope you had a good holiday. It's the day after Christmas. And hopefully you got great presents. Maybe you had some family stuff go on. Let's not let that distract from marching towards a brand new year where you get to be totally who you are. And speaking of being totally who you are, there's something interesting in our queer culture. When we start to go outside of us white boys, I'm just going to go there, and we step into being a man of color, Asian, Black, Hispanic. There's a whole new layer of stuff that may require you to have to, quote unquote, pass for straight. And I want to explore that a little bit. In fact, I have a guest today that we're going to go explore some of that stuff. And especially when it's in the entertainment and performing arts world, they're just interesting twists and assumptions and things that, put people in a box that says, oh, of course you're queer, whatever it might happen. He is the author of a book called Black Queer Dance, Gay Men and the Politics of Passing for Straight. He is an associate professor of English. He's the founder of and director of performance as social change at SUNY Geseo. And he's got a PhD in, dance. So I'm just going to say this guy's been doing a whole lot. His name is Mark Broomfield. And I love getting to talk to people who are in the entertainment world and dance world. I used to be a dancer. So, yes. Mark, welcome to the podcast, man. I am so glad that you are joining me. And, hopefully a few people are listening the day after Christmas. That's going to be the hope. So glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be on the podcast with you and the space that you've opened up for our community.
Well, I feel like this is something that needs to be discussed. I mean, I kind of put it in the intro, like, I don't think there's enough discussion being had in our LGBTQ space, and especially with gay and bisexual men and trans men about the nuances that men of color face.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things, and then especially when you are in the dance world, as soon as you say, oh, I'm in dance or something like that, oh, you got to be queer. Not necessarily. Not all dancers are queer. But so let's kind of like, you've been doing this for a long time, right? Dance has been part of your DNA.
Yeah.
When did this start for you?
I started, I've always been a mover. So as a kid. So, and I talk about that in my book. I'm Black British of Jamaican heritage. And so,
we know Jamaicans love to move, so let's just go there. I mean, they ain't keeping a Jamaican still, and I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I love being a Jamaican. I'm like, this is the vibe I enjoy. So
I grew up in a West Indian household, and it was called the West Indian front room. And so the front room is where I began dancing as a kid. And I tell the story in the memoir chapter of my book. And my sister friends, my sister, we had living room dances. We danced competitively in the living room. And so, but ultimately it's my joy and love for dance came from my sister and, like I said, my sister friends when I moved to the Bronx from London. And one of my friends in particular, her name was Karen, and I write about her in the book too. She danced for the dance theater. She was a student at the Dance Theater of Harlem at the time. And this was in the 1980s. And she was such an inspiration to me. The grace, the elegance, the power, and the beauty of her movement was just inspiring. And I was like, what is that? Right? And at the same time, I was always, always dancing in the living room because that's what we did,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's the beginning of the journey. But I didn't really, and I danced in high school in musical productions, Damn Yankees, Hello Dolly, and Bye Bye
Mm.
Birdie. So I had those experiences, but it wasn't until I went to college that I said I wanted to actually do dance.
Mm.
And I went to SUNY Purchase, and the book goes. I talk about my dance journey until I go to this SUNY Purchase, which was
Right.
the dance conservatory, and that was my first real commitment um, to exploring it professionally and like having dance classes every day. Prior to that, I was, um, taking dance classes pretty much like once a week.
Mm. Hmm.
And for a younger dancer, like that's not enough, right?
Right.
You really have to be doing it pretty much
Almost,
every
almost every
day,
day.
right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, um, and so that's part of the my dance beginnings,
Hmm.
and it's just a love for movement, a love for the reaction of what people see,
Hmm.
right? When they see you move and how you inspire people to to respond to your dancing. And so, because that's a lot of like when you're getting feedback, like, oh, you're really good at this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the feedback you take, and like, okay, well, this is something I have a real passion for and love. And
Right.
then the commitment to it, I became more serious.
So through that whole journey, I'm going to make a little bit of an assumption here.
Yeah.
You probably had to start confronting in different ways your own queerness and being a gay man, and probably
Oh,
showed
yeah.
up a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so it's, let's just say, I know as so many other, right, gay and queer men, right? You know you're
Hmm.
different from when you're a kid. And this is also in the memoir chapter of my book, chapter 3, Just Like a Girl. When
Mm.
I was growing up, that was the term that was used towards me all the time. He's just like a girl. I'm like, well, what did
Mm.
I do? Um, you know,
I
what
want to
did I
shake my booty. Does that mean I'm just like a girl? I mean, come
you know
on,
and so but in any event, like I just wanted to, I knew my difference, I knew how I stood out from my other family members.
Hmm.
I certainly began to, I was like, question like my attraction to other boys, right, at the
Yep.
time, because I was like, why am I like just wanting to, I just like these boys,
Right.
like, and wanting to be with them so much. And some of it moved just beyond play. We definitely
Mm.
were playing, but it was like, so you don't always have the words for it. And
Right.
I'm generation X.
Right.
So we don't always didn't have the words for it. And the dance, because you're in a world, and this is what I write about, dance is a world that, yeah, like gay men are attracted to, right?
Hmm.
It's a space and a safer space. I don't call it a safe space. It's a
Right.
safer
Right.
in terms of practicing your form and artistry. But that's the contradiction and I would say, conditional relationship that like many gay men have, because you come into your identity in a
Hmm.
space that tells you, one, there's stereotypes like you referred to. There's
Right.
stereotypes about what it is to be a male dancer. You don't even have to say anything to folks, and folks already have an image of what it is
Right.
that they believe a
Exactly.
male
Yeah.
dancer is,
And
right?
of course, most gay men go, "Oh, they're a dancer." Like, "Oh, I love them when they're in their tights and you can see the bulge." Let's just go there, right?
That yeah, I'm a fan of like just be explicit. Like that's
Yes.
what people are going to the performance. They want to
Hmm.
see your body,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
And
I
so much
agree.
of what
I
the
agree.
body is right. You're exposed.
Hmm.
Um, and so, and you're seeing, and you're not just exposed, but you're a spectacle,
Yep.
right? And so, and then all kinds of other things come up, like, you look good.
Right.
I have a desire for that. So it's not just about the artistry, it's also cultivating your response to what the performance and your body is doing on stage. I
Yeah.
also, you know, and so,
But it's such an interesting thing
mhm,
because I think people who aren't involved in that world.
mhm,
So I was involved. It's interesting as you start talking about. I did not do. I mean, I always liked moving and all that sort of
yeah,
stuff too as a kid. Like you, I was involved in stage productions. You know, even in my small little one room schoolhouse that I started in Colorado, I brought my own stage. Wrote my own stage production. You know, wrote a play that we
yeah,
all performed, and then in high school and all that sort of stuff. But it wasn't until I got to college that I'm like, okay, I'm away from my, you know, kind of my heritage and background,
mhm,
so I can kind of do stuff. Ironically, Mark, I went to a small religious college
mm,
and I used to sneak off campus on the weekends to go to dance classes. And I
yep,
had to literally sneak off campus, pretend I was
yeah,
going to
yeah,
church,
yeah,
right? It's so interesting what you said about like suddenly you're in that world, kind of in that safe space, so to
yeah,
speak. And that was the first time I had a guy hit on me was in dance
mhm,
class.
yeah, yeah,
It turned me on and it freaked me out.
yeah,
And I wish I had gone further with him because he was beautiful. He was
yeah,
absolutely gorgeous. Right now
yeah,
that I think
yeah,
back, I'm like, why didn't I take advantage of that hit on?
yep,
Right.
mhm,
But interestingly enough, a few weeks later, I get this wild hair up my ass to like, okay, I'm going to push some boundaries on campus.
yep,
And I said, I'm going to volunteer to like just host a movement class. And I
yes,
just put it out to a few people. And it was mostly the theater people on campus. I knew our theater director was gay, but because he was, you know, a good Seventh-day Adventist man, that was never going to be admitted. I'm like, girl, you are as queer as I am, but neither one of us are talking about this shit.
yep,
Right.
yep, yep, yep,
And I remember doing that little like, okay, I'm going to create a safe space for people to move. And it was a lot of the theater people. And one of the guys in the group, and this was, I was pushing the envelope because I had my little
mhm,
leggings on and everything. And I'm like,
mhm,
okay, whoever didn't know I was gay was blind as a bat, right? And I remember I did a movement and it wasn't like dance. It was like, let's freely move. And I was trying to get people more into moving freely on stage because we were getting ready to do a
yes,
production. And so I said, okay, you all do this and do this. And I'm like, okay, let's go take a break. And I remember one of the guys coming over and I'm sitting on a chair. You know,
mhm,
I'm like sitting like Mr. not director chair, but like, hey, I'm the one leading this thing. He comes over and he plops his little behind down on my lap and puts his arm
mhm,
around my neck and he goes, that was some really good stuff. And then he started moving around. I'm like,
mhm,
wait, there's something here going on, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that was the moment that both of us kind of had that freak out moment like, wait, we're in a group of other people, which I felt most of the guys, it's
yeah,
ironic all these years later, all the rest of
yeah,
the guys in that group were queer now that we're
yeah,
beyond and moving in life.
yeah, yeah,
But I think it's an interesting space, right? And
absolutely,
one of those guys was a man of color.
yeah,
He's actually Whitney Houston's like second or third cousin to Whitney.
okay,
He was so, to your point, I have to act straight. I have to be straight because I'm a man of color. And yet all of us knew,
yeah,
all of us knew each other, but we weren't talking about it.
yeah,
Don't you feel, after I've said all that, don't you
yeah,
feel that for black men,
yeah.
even when you enter in to that safe space, there's something about being a black man that still makes it harder to be you, even in that safe space?
Absolutely. So, so just to clarify, the subtitle of my book is so it's Black Queer Dance, Gay Men, and the Politics of Passing for Almost Straight.
Almost right. Yes,
And
exactly.
the almost straight is really critical.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you said there too, there is that's why I wrote it. I was like, okay, there's a difference, right?
There is a
The
big difference.
big difference, and so the expectations under which black men entered this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
The history of the black body in America,
Yep.
um, and so the the legacy of that history and what it means for Black bodies who perform on stage who were excluded historically from performing in concert dance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my inspiration for the book was Alvin Ailey, right? The
Of
iconic,
course.
right? The
Yep.
iconic Alvin Ailey. And so, and my inspiration, not only the beauty and majesty of the choreography and he as a person, but I was actually also drawn to his offstage life, right? Because, you know, from a child, I was impacted by the beauty of Black beauty, right? Introducing Black beauty on the world stage, in an idiom that had historically excluded Black people,
Right.
right? And so, and what does it mean to enter that space and introduce Black bodies on a stage that have been stereotyped in so many ways?
Right.
And so the offstage component, because he dealt with mental health, right? He struggled with his mental health. He struggled with what it meant to be a gay man growing up in the Depression era of the United States, from Texas and then moving to LA.
Right.
And so he was aware of his sexual identity early on in his life. But for me, it's about his career once he started his company and what it took to sustain it,
Yep.
and be the success that it is today in the ways
Absolutely.
that we know, that Judith Jameson changed the trajectory once she took over from his passing. And so what I saw in his story is the struggle to perform at the highest level, which he did and the company continues to do, and to be who you are.
Yes.
In a space that told you you can't be, right? I would say, for me, this is what I talk about in the book, the distinction between coming out and doing out.
Ooh,
right?
I love that.
Right. So the coming out, coming out for Black gay men and queer men is very different for white men.
Yep.
Right. Because there are all kinds of assumptions about what it means to come out. Right. And who has the privilege of coming out in ways that doesn't understand the nuances of how race impacts gender. And so, and part of it, I would say the three themes of my book are like freedom of movement, freedom of expression, and sexual freedom. And so if we think about it in those terms, like in terms of white men and freedom of movement, right? Like the world is yours, right?
Yes.
Right.
I always say that, Mark. I actually say it's so interesting you're bringing this up, and sorry to interrupt, but I can't get past this. I always say, so if you and I were walking down the street, having a conversation, nobody is going to have any freaking clue that I'm gay. But they sure the heck are going to know you're Black. And then if you said I'm a dancer, they're immediately going to assume you're gay. I'm going to be standing there like, oh, I would like his black dick. I'd take it in a heartbeat. But they're not going to have any clue, because this is these assumptions that happen. And I'm glad you brought this up, because this is where the race and everything starts to play. So then you got the second piece you were going to talk about.
Yeah, well, so the freedom of expression. So what you just said, right? So how are you publicly performing your identity? Right? As you move through space. And I love that you're walking down the street, like you can see, right? So Black bodies are surveilled, right? Surveillance functions very differently to Black bodies, as we know historically, through slavery, right? And Jim Crow, and the prison industrial complex, and stop and search or stop and frisk. So all of those things function differently for Black men that, white men don't have to encounter when we're talking about the queer community, right?
Yes.
And so that for me, it's the challenge, I would say, the limitations to the freedom of movement, right? That we're always dealing with, right? We're dealing with the ways that space either open or close, or the tensions within them as you're moving through different spaces. And so for instance, I'll give you an example. Like, I went to a conference, and Natalie Cole was performing. And one of my colleagues who is white Latino, right, was was going back and forth to see Natalie Cole perform. He didn't have a ticket, by the way, right? So he had to go through security, and he just walked through. No questions asked, right? No questions. So I was like, when he told me, he was like, "Oh, Natalie Cole is like playing here, at the conference. We can just go." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go with you," right? I wanted to see, to see her too. So I'm walking with him, and as soon as we're both walking together, who stops us? Security.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. So they didn't stop him, and he had gone back a few times without question. But my body being next to his was an immediate...
Changes everything.
Yes. He said that we were questioned. They asked us, did we have tickets? I was like, and this is in the footnotes of my book. But I was like, no, we don't have tickets. So we walked away, and we went back to, the conference and with our, friends and stuff. And we just talked about the incident, and we joked about it. But we knew what was going on in that moment. And so that's just one of the ways that, again, surveillance functions.
Yes.
In a space like that we often take for granted. And
it's interesting, Mark, that you said this, because this is a thought I had just recently. I mean, I've had lots of different people on both of my podcasts, trans, queer, gender nonconforming, drag queens, comedian, all this. So it goes the gamut. But one of the things that I thought of just a few weeks ago, and I think it was because we were in Mexico City, and I was I was the one that stood out because, I'm a white guy, right? But I was really interested in how the Latino white culture was very prominent in Mexico City. Okay. And then I saw a group of Latino young twinks. Okay, we'll go there. Very effeminate leaning, lots of hand gestures, the talk, everything, even though it was in Spanish. I could tell that they were Latino queer. Okay, I just knew that. But there was the one guy who was Black with them.
Yes. And
it got me thinking about how many times is it actually more acceptable to be, quote, femme queer white than femme queer Black, Asian, Hispanic.
Yeah.
And it really hit. And that's the thing that's so interesting to me, because now after, seeing them, it's been on my mind. I knew you and I were going to be having this conversation, finally having this conversation. Guys, listen, we've been trying to do this for a few months. Let's just go there. Okay. But I thought I really want to talk about this because even in our own queer community, I think there is a level of acceptance, even if you're not into femme queer. Okay. It's almost like you can handle a femme queer boy who's white more than you can a femme queer Latino, Hispanic, Asian, for whatever reasons.
Well, let's get into it. Right?
Yes.
So let's get into it. So for me, we're talking about, this is why I say it's passing for almost straight.
Almost straight. Yes. Yes.
Right. So we have to talk about, in queer culture, why there's such a premium on straightness. Right. Like, we're not straight. Right. Straight isn't saying anything about who you desire.
No.
It's not saying anything about your sexual practices.
Right.
Right. So why are so many queer men fixated on straightness, and I would say masculinity, straight acting, right? Why are they so focused on straight acting? What is that about?
Yeah.
And so much so that you see the no fats, no femmes, right?
No Asians, no Blacks,
no Blacks.
Blah, blah, blah.
So what is that about? What is that? And some people would say it's just my choice. No, we're in a culture where we're conditioned to like things. Right? There is a culture that supports our choices, right? In a world in which if you're going to only see Black men through a stereotype,
Yep.
and not the humanity, well, what does that mean? And what's interesting to me, I've been an educator for a long time.
Yep.
And so I talk to students often in a predominantly white institution. I say, well, what is your engagement? What is your direct knowledge of Black people and Black people, right? So if you don't have a direct relationship to Black people, socialized, what do you know?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So so I always ask that question, is to say, well, if you don't have a direct relationship to it, somebody else is informing your idea about what it is, because it's mediated. Right? It's mediated through our culture, and somebody else is determining that for you. So I'm saying to myself, well, do you have critical consciousness about that actually happening? Right? Because it's like, you need to understand that you're receiving somebody else's ideas about what Black masculinity is, or Black queer masculinity. Right? But but to what extent have you experienced that? But you're talking about, in this instance, where you saw it, and there is a contrast. And so there's a way that Black men are hypersexualized and hypermasculinized.
Well,
right?
let's just go for the biggest thing. Like the typical, oh, he's Black, he's got to have a huge cock.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true, right? And the thing is if that's the way you actually admire and quote unquote humanize a Black man, you are so far off. In fact, I've had numerous Black friends throughout my life, but it wasn't until quote I became queer, because we just become queer. It's just a flip. We flipped the switch and guess what, I'm queer. But it wasn't until I came out and realized that I really was attracted to Black men, not just because of the size of their dick. There's just something that I'm very attracted to. I didn't end up marrying a Black guy, but I'm definitely attracted to men of color.
Yeah.
And I started asking myself the question, why?
Yes.
Why are you?
Yep.
A little bit of it is the intrigue of, yes, the sexual, what do they have? But I guess because I was in the dance space myself.
Yes.
I'm attracted to men with, beautiful bodies.
Yes.
Not that a lot of people aren't, but there's something about the essence of, for me, okay, I'm just talking from my own personal perspective, the essence of the culture of the man. There's an essence of masculinity in Black men for the most part that I just find really intriguing. I do see the same thing in white guys. I'm not saying I don't, guys. So any of you are listening, don't take me like I'm not interested. But there's an intrigue and a desire for me when I look at a Black man, and especially Hispanic, Asian, but especially Black man. It's not what I prefer. It's not. There's this essence in me that, like, I really appreciate that. And I remember the first time I had a Black queer man on my podcast, not this one, but the one I did for 10 years. One of my first questions is, I know there's differences in culture and everything, and I'm coming to you as a white man, as a white gay man. Please help me understand the difference. I wanted to understand the difference. And every interview I've done, I keep bringing more and more and more of that. And you're already bringing lots of unique new differences. Where do you find the struggle in your daily life with this, as it still exists? Because I know it still exists.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say it's everywhere. When I say passing for almost straight, part of what it is, it's about all the different spaces, places, and contexts we move, right? You're at work, right? So to what extent do you disclose? And this is the important thing. So for me, coming out, right? Listen, we can be out, right? Right. But it's about whether you're disclosing your identity to someone else.
Yes.
That's a distinction, right? I'm saying if you're gay, queer, you're coming out for the rest of your life. It's a life sentence.
Yes.
Right? Because
I love that. It's a life sentence, no doubt.
It's a life sentence because everybody doesn't know you're gay.
So every day we come out to people.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think a lot of people really grasp that concept.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. I challenge coming out. That's why I challenge the concept of it, because you're really asking us to publicly perform in a certain way that identifies us in a certain way, that you receive or understand as, quote, gay or queer. And if we don't have those markers or codes, then you're saying, okay, well, you're fine, you're straight, or you're passing for almost straight, or you're passing for straight for some folks. But I use the almost because all the men in my book are not gay. I mean, they're not straight, right? And that's the key distinction. They're not straight.
Right.
All
and
of
that
them.
is such a key thing. You speaking of the markers, and this is something I am going to say is something that I purposely do to help people understand me and see if they go for the queer assumption. My husband and I love theater. Okay. In fact, we're going to the theater as we're recording this. We're going to the theater this weekend.
Okay, great.
And it's always interesting for me, Mark, when I say my husband and I, well, first of all, when I say my husband and I love theater, there's no getting around that I'm gay. Okay. Yep. But what I like to do sometimes is when I'm with a crowd, go, oh, I love musical theater and I love going to the theater. You can almost always find one or two people that are like, the head tilt happens like, oh, is he
I'm sorry about that.
gay?
Oh. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey, this is what podcast editing is all for, buddy. So
I'm sorry.
No. And I'm trying to remember now, what was I talking about? So we can pick it up.
We were, again, straightness.
I was talking about theater and stuff. So
yeah, theater. Yeah, going to theater.
So here's what. I'll just pretend like we're just starting that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
So here's something that's really interesting, Mark. And I've done this little experiment a few times. So my husband and I truly love going to the theater. In fact, we're going this coming weekend, and it's not uncommon for us to spend the majority of our time. We're either going to the theater or going to wineries. So everybody kind of knows that. But I love playing this little game with people. Like, okay, I may say sometimes my husband and I are going to the theater. Well, there it is. It's all laid out. I'm gay. I have a husband. Guess what? We just stepped into the stereotype. Oh, of course you do. All the gays like theater. No, that's not true. Not all the gays like theater. Okay. What I love to do sometimes, though, is say, oh, I really enjoy going to the theater,
Yes.
and letting that just hang in a group of mixed, people, because there's always the person or two that does the little head tilt, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you can almost feel like they're thinking in their head, is he gay? Is he
Mm-hmm.
gay? Because there's the freaking assumption.
Yep.
And this happens all the time with people of color on so many levels.
Yeah.
Yet, even in our own community,
Yeah.
I don't think we understand these interesting assumptions, like we've already talked about. Just because he's black doesn't mean he has a huge cock. Just because he's black and femme doesn't mean he's a total bottom. These are these interesting things that happen. And I think this is what you're talking about when you say
Absolutely.
the almost straight piece. There's a lot of it, but it's exacerbated, at least in my opinion, from what you've shared and reading some of the stuff about your book. It is exacerbated the moment that skin color comes into play.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, so there are 5 S's in my book. Silencing, stereotypes, stigma, shame, and surveillance. And so part of that came out of my looking at, as you're just saying, Black queer men, right? And we all grow, I think, of a certain generation. You're growing up, and I still think even if you're young and Gen Z or that you're still millennials, all of that, you're still growing up in a culture of homophobia. You're still growing up in a culture that devalues gay men, right? You're growing up in a culture that shames you because the definition of masculinity is defined against, right?
Yep.
Right? It's you're defined against being feminine or gay. So that's the definition. Masculinity is defined by what it's not. You're not gay, and you're and not to be feminine.
Right.
So I think and that's it. So like you have this pressure to prove your masculinity all the time. And this is the almost straight component, because it's just like what I love, like in Kenji Yoshino's book Covering, I love he expressed a story about a law scholar, and I used it to explain one of my concepts too. He talked about how he moved through he was going to Fire Island, right? And how he was traveling on a train, and then how by the time he got on the boat, and all like your comportment, how how his behavior changed, and then by the time you're on Fire Island, like a freeing of how you perform publicly.
Yes, because we operate in these almost straight spaces all the time.
Yeah, and so that's it. And so what I'm saying is like for me, the doing out, right, is political.
Yes.
Right? Because it's intentional. You know that you're in a space where performing your identity publicly is going to create tension in some spaces, right? Where if it's a space where it's valued,
right?
But even if it is valued, you're in a space where sometimes people tell you it's too much, you're too gay, right? So you're also moderating. It's just like, okay, now you want me to don't be too gay, but I want you to be gay, but then don't be too gay.
Well, but that's always when it's the too gay thing, and it's all I see this even in our own community.
Yeah.
And I get it. Some guys are just not comfortable, quote, being gay. I okay, fine. Then go suck dick and get fucked. That's fine. Whatever you want to do. And I'm not knocking it. Okay, guys. If you're one of those guys, I didn't mean that to come off as demeaning. But that doesn't mean you get to tell somebody else that they're too gay. They're being themselves the way they want to be in their skin, what makes them comfortable in the spaces that they choose to be who they want to be. Let them be that. We all want to be who we are as gay men. That doesn't mean knock somebody else because you think they're too gay. We get enough of that in the outside world.
And so that comes to the freedom of expression. right?
Yes.
So when you're talking about freedom of expression, we're also talking about the policing of gender.
Yes.
And we're also talking about the policing of sexuality,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so who's doing the policing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and why are we so invested in policing other people's behavior? What's that about? Um,
I think
and,
it's about insecurity. I
well,
think
yeah.
I think it's because you see somebody else doing something that you quote, "Oh, no, but do you secretly desire wish you could be that open?" I get this all the time, man. I'm not
Yeah,
bragging, but I get this
yeah.
all the time like, "Rick, you are just so open." Yes, I am because I hid for too freaking long. If
Hmm.
you don't like me being open, that's okay. Then I'm not for you, and you're
Hmm.
probably not for me. And that's okay too.
I'm gonna, I love what you just said. And I'm gonna also, I talk about this too. I challenge openly gay.
Mm.
I also challenge that, right? I'm not saying we as a community shouldn't use these terms, but let's interrogate them. Because I'm
Mm.
just, when I say like coming out too, right? You know, okay, like, but you still don't know me. I'm in a new context. I'm
Yes.
traveling abroad. You don't know
Yes.
who I am. I'm in a completely different cultural context. And so, whatever assumptions they're making about me, that's it. But the openly gay thing, I challenge that too because you're still making assumptions about disclosure
Mm-hmm.
and people knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or people perceiving your public performance of identity in ways that you agree with or maybe not, because everyone doesn't see through the same lens.
Right.
And so I'm interested in challenge that this is the nuance of what I'm presenting is that uh, and for black men particularly, you're having to make decisions about how you move through the space with intention because and I think queer folks do, right? Our relationship to public spaces particularly, right? Are you holding your partner's hand publicly, right? Something basic that straight people do. um, and what spaces do you feel more comfortable or more safe doing that versus
Mm-hmm.
not, and what's going on there? What
Yeah.
choices are you making about your safety and survival when you know that you can be beat up and shot? So I'll give you an example in the book that I open. So I don't know if you remember O'Shea Sibley. O'Shea,
Yes.
2 years, right? So he was
Mm-hmm.
murdered for
Yep.
voguing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'm just like, listen, you just like voguing and somebody murders you for voguing.
Yep.
So that's political, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're
Totally political.
right.
Yep.
So you're making a case of like this is, as you just said, I'm owning who I am,
Mm-hmm.
my authenticity, and declaring it publicly. And as you said, for some people, that is a threat,
It is a threat.
right?
There
And
isn't a
so,
time that I don't consider that, but I also still go, I am not going to hide
mhm,
myself.
yeah,
And I probably do. I know there's times that I do. I mean, I don't openly hold my husband's hand in public, but we never really did that anyway. We don't hold
hmm,
hands when we're in certain spaces, but it's not like this is a driver for me. But I am sure not going to hide into, somebody says, "Oh, are you married?" Yeah, my husband.
yeah,
I'm not hiding that one bit, you
yeah,
know. And so I think the beauty of where there's so many things I love that you said, Mark, and I'm so glad that you came on this podcast because you gave us some phrasing that are to me are really important, like the almost straight, the doing out versus coming out. These are just those silent things that we bring up. You have nailed so many of those, and I think a lot of the listeners are going to walk away from this with, I really need to think about this in a different way.
yeah,
Because, well, just some of the phrases you
yeah.
use are just, they're thought provoking in and of themselves. I could have stopped many times, like, okay, we're going to do a deep dive into this. We only have so much time.
I know
But
exactly. I get it.
it
Yeah,
is a really amazing thing
yeah,
how you're
yeah.
putting this in the space of, here's what we see, here's how we move through these spaces. It happens to come with a different sensibility for queer men of color.
Yeah.
And then you add the piece of and being in the performing arts. all of this begins to be a snowball
Yep.
that I hope has caused many of the listeners to pause and go, am I contributing to this? Am I not being who I want to be more? This is why I love doing these shows. So I have one last question for you before we wrap up.
Yes.
You're obviously a man of a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
How are you finding the current circumstances in the planet either causing you to shrink back, which I don't think is what's happening, or to even continue forward and go, no, I'm going to be even more continually how I am and showcasing where we show up in these quote almost straight spaces? How is it affecting you right now?
Listen, I'm going to continue to do the work that I'm doing. I'm going to continue to be who I am. The book itself is a declaration, right? The title itself is, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So this is what I do know. The title itself is a provocation for people to even entertain the book, right? Because we're in a political moment where that explicit topic itself is one that people, I've had invitations, right, for book talks, right, like declined, right, because of the current political climate in the country, right? Because some people are afraid of discussing this topic explicitly in the way that I'm talking about. So no, I'm not shying away from anything about who I am and who I am in the world and how I move through the world.
Right.
Because ultimately, that's what the book is about too, right?
Well, it is.
How do you move through the world?
Somebody said to me the other day, like, are you going to continue to do the podcast given like some of the crazy stuff that seems to be coming down around LGBTQ individuals? I said, absolutely not. It's even more reason to keep doing the podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's a voice. I'm not saying I'm not fighting the fiercest, but I am kind of like, I'm not hiding. It's too late. All you have to do is listen to podcasts that I've already done. This political climate is just exacerbating the fact that let's have even more conversations around this stuff.
Can I say before we end?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also challenge hiding.
I agree.
Right? I challenge the term hiding because we're not hiding. We are in a political and oppressive environment, right? Where the terms and we didn't agree to the terms and conditions of this relationship.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right. And so I'm challenging our thinking about like, wait a minute, like, first of all, I'm not accepting your definition of this, right? So I'm not hiding, right? How I show up in the world is about making a strategic choice about how I move through the world, right? And sometimes that's like maybe being like a chameleon, right? The chameleon isn't hiding who they are. They just need to adapt to the space that they're in so you can survive.
Yes, exactly. I love that. So again, the book, guys, if you're interested, there's a soft cover coming out next year, right? That's what you said, Mark, 2026.
Yep.
His current book is very academic. That's what he had shared with me earlier.
But listen, I still think it's accessible. It is academic, but I still think it's accessible.
Yeah. But there is another version of it coming out in 2026. And the name of the book is Black Queer Dance, Gay Men, and the Politics of Passing for Almost Straight. I love the Almost Straight. That was one. As soon as I read that, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a great conversation because this guy's going to throw me some zingers and I'm going to be waiting to go, what else is going to come out of his beautiful mouth? So, Mark, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Rick. Thank you for bringing to the planet what you're blinging and bringing. Okay, let's just go there. Words are hard sometimes, but hey, that was a good faux pas that actually worked. So, appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a wonderful New Year, guys. I know it's just a few days away. Go into the new year realizing you can move through these spaces. I love the chameleon. We're chameleons, and let's move through. Let's be who we're meant to be. Show up how we're meant to show up. Everyone is fighting this beautiful fight, but especially for my Black, queer men of color. Lean into us. Those of us who are with you, we are with you, and we're going to help you fight these fights. So thank you again so much, Mark, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And if any of you want to find out where Mark's stuff is, go to the show page, but his website is Broomfield, Broom, just like the broom that, Cynthia flies on in Wicked. It's that kind of a broom. Broomfield, into the field.org. And you can find out everything about what he's doing, his events, his books, all that sort of stuff. So have a happy new year, everyone. And we will be back right after New Year with a brand new episode to kickstart the new year and get you into 2026. Have a good day, everybody.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus. Gay men, gay talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.